So this is my opportunity to say, look at all my college degrees I've got. I've got an MDiv and MSW. I went to the what was called at the time Coaching Training Institute. It's now called the Coactive Training Institute, and did that around 15 years ago. And let me, just so I can see hands here. So, whoops. I just fucked up something. Oh, there you are. Who has been involved with the Mankind Project? Okay, 2 people. Okay. There are some other coaches. I know Daniel, a few other coaches. Who has participated in Illuman, Men's Rite of Passage? Okay, good. Let me go back to sharing screen. All right. So my want for our time together is just to increase awareness of men, growth experiences, particularly LGBTQ plus workshops. And I want you to have some understanding what Illuman-Men's Rite of Passage and the Mankind Project is about, their premise, what men might gain from them, and their differences and similarities. And then as you hear this, what I'd like for you to consider even more, because I imagine most of you are already doing it, what do men need as far as coaching, LGBTQ men in particular? What are men hungering for? And what would a workshop that you create might look like? So I'm encouraging you to embrace the possibilities, how men might and their need add to your coaching and create a workshop as needed. How do I do that? Okay. Men's growth experiences, we've all done a lot of them, I imagine. My experience probably was around 17, 18 years ago. I was working my ass off and feeling really exhausted, and I Googled gay workshops, and it ended up going to Gay Spirit Vision. That's a group out of Georgia that they do their workshops in Highland, North Carolina, 4 times a year. Most of us, especially if you've been involved with Body Electric, so that's 2 for 1, been involved with Wildwood, Mankind Project over there, Illuman, and then of course our lovely and wonderful Easton Mountain. This is stating an obvious. My experience being of the ripe old age of 68 with about 30 years to go, I'm finding more and more men coming to coaching and coming to psychotherapy. I have both hats. And in the therapy room or the coaching experience, I'm guessing you've experienced that men cry, men break down, they share their anxiety, they have emotions. Yet I tell the story that if you go to a kindergarten class or an elementary class and a little boy falls in the playground and skinned his knee, some adult is bound to go over to him and say to him, "It ain't that bad. Little boys don't cry. It's okay. Get back on the playground." Versus little Susie, if she breaks or skins her knee, someone's going to go over, give her a hug, say, "It's okay to cry. Let's get you to the nurse." And it's a different message to them. And so us guys learn pretty quickly, don't share emotions. Now, the paradox I find for heterosexual men in particular, and I'm finding also in my relationship with Rite and gay men, is that when we get in relationship, men's spouses, particularly female ones, say, "What are you feeling?" And the guy freezes up, says, "I don't know." And what's wrong with you that you don't know? So I don't know anybody else saw this week. This was an article from the New York Times on September 3rd, the post-coloscopy male friendship test. And Boris Freshman was talking about male relationships in the article. He talked about 15% of middle-aged men report loneliness and having no friends at all. And in this article, he's talking about if you needed to go get a colonoscopy, who would you ask of your male friends? Now, the paradox in his article, all his friends, most of them he's never met. They're online, maybe at a workshop, and they continue telephone contact. And then my joke, why is everybody in this picture smiling? Especially the guy sitting down there. I mean, he's rather cute, but why is everybody smiling going to a colonoscopy? I make up that men need coaching and men's workshop, primarily doing the work of Brene Brown, getting beyond shame. And shame, as Brene defines it, shows up as inadequate, not enough, weak, and this sense is amplified when they're alone. So in workshops, men need deeper connection, share their story, get growth, normalize what they're experiencing, loneliness, bond with other men, fun, socialize, and get the sense that I am good enough. And I'm going to stop my screen just for a second. Oh, I can't find my mouse, so whoops. Bear with me. Oh, there it is. So at this point, I'd like just to pause and get some feedback here. What has been your experience with, I'm sure everybody here has been to Easton Mountain or Wildwood or done Body Electric. What has been your experience doing men's work, getting with other men? What have been some positive outcomes that you've experienced? And anybody can just chime in.
I'll start. Well, I experienced like finding my tribe, an immediate sense of closeness, not having to explain myself at Easton Mountain, and with this group of GCA, and just really feeling a strong connection early, easily, and those connections and friendships have really sustained like 7 years now.
I think the closest that I came to this was the conference for GCA at Easton Mountain. I don't know that I've been involved in other things that have that same kind of value. So.
Back in the 1990s, I went to, they used to do the wild man retreats and, get out in the woods and sweat lodges and men crying and supporting one another. They had some for gay men called the Shaman Circle here in Texas. And that was, I guess, the first time I had ever been around so many gay men and loving gay men and not trying to impress gay men. And just realizing how exhausting it is to hide and to be in the closet and just to be safe. And it was just an epiphany, and it was so powerful.
Thank you.
In the late 80s, I got very involved in a gay men's workshop that was held in Massachusetts, a conference center called Row, which I think has some similarities to Easton Mountain. And when I moved to California, I missed that bus shoot when so I couldn't help but notice that. I really missed that when I moved to California, that connection of gay men coming together and just kind of looking inside and figuring out who we are and also connecting with one another. And I discovered a group out here called California Men's Gatherings, where we do 2 or 3 retreats a year. And I've gotten extremely involved with them. I've been to over 50 of their retreats 2 or 3 times a year, helping run the one this coming November in Idlewild. So for the Californians out here, I'll post the link. But it's just been wonderful to be involved initially in my own growth, and I continue to grow, but more to be a part of keeping it going so that it creates a space for everybody to have that. And just connecting, not just growth, but the connection and community.
So you hear the themes here, and you've experienced it, and I make up, this is a need that men are increasingly wanting. I frequently share the story of my father grew up on a farming community growing Frank Perdue chickens. And our home was at a crossroads. There was our home, the Presbyterian church, the country store, and another house, and then other farming houses nearby. And at the end of the workday, 6 o'clock after dinner, farmers eat dinner around 4:30, 5 o'clock, Dad would go to the country store. And during the summer months, they would sit on the front porch, bring in bean stalks and corn stalks and compare and talk about the crops. But in between, the men would be sharing their stories. So if something was going on, the other men would support them. The winter months, it was around the potbelly stove in the back of the store. So in that story, I think men have always felt a need to come together, to share, so that they're not alone. And increasingly, and Brene has done some research on this too, people in the United States are increasingly reporting that they are lonely. And as I said, men increasingly are reporting being lonely, and they don't know a way out, because that shame message, I'm alone, I'm supposed to be autonomous, independence, make it on my own. And the shame just spirals, and now they're all alone. And what do men do when they're in shame? Well, they go to their dungeon, or maybe not the dungeon, to their cave. They drink, increase drugs, increase porn on the net. You've heard it as well as I do. Yeah, so let me go back to the screen a little bit. Any other comment, question at this point?
Richard, so I have a question. Is there a generational difference in this? So if you go to men in their 20s, is it different for them?
I'm not reading any research, and my gut reaction is no, but I'm just speaking for gay men. What I'm hearing, they're more likely to go online, and the research is that if people spend more than 2 hours online, they have a higher degree of depression and isolation. Any other thoughts to Matt's question or comment? Thank you. I'll do one more other comment. I'm of a generation where growing up in my 20s and 30s, and I was pretty straight then. Maybe that came out wrong, pretty straight, but okay. There was the JCs, the Kiwanis, the Knights of Columbus. Believe it or not, in my community, there was an organization called the Red Men, where white men dressed up as Indians. All those organizations, for the most part, are losing memberships. Churches, lowest number of going to church right now in our history. So all the structures that used to be there for men, not there like they were. And so it's becoming a problem. And there's a need for something to be birthed. And that's where I think Mankind Project, Easton Mountain's doing it, Wildwood's doing it. If you ever go to the North Carolina group of people, Gay Spirit Visions, it's bonding. It's what you all talked about. Let me back up here. Whoops. All right. Yes. Okay. I saw the note. They are taking them for a colostomy. They're not doing a colostomy, but in some communities that could happen too. Talked about that. Just continuing to generate for you your story, your growth experience, your reasons for going to a workshop. Share it with your clients. It's compelling. and it can help them move out of their isolation and say, well, if my coach did it, my therapist did it, there must be something. And the bottom screen there is, on my bottom left, is a Mankind project. They take a group picture at the end. That's a Lumen that just was done in Illinois. And the Rite is out in the garden at Easton Mountain. Both the Lumen and Mankind project go into the archetype of the magician, warrior, king, and lover. I'm not going to read all of that. Lover is basically about connection, being in the moment, being vulnerable. Warrior energy is about purposeful living, grounding, boundaries. And I love, I've heard it's the Navajo statement, but I'm more Worf on Star Trek. It's a good day to die. We're living in purpose. And if I die this way, it's okay. Magician is transformational energy, embracing mysteries, seeking answers. And king unites all the archetypes. You are the sovereign in your life. It's a life of service. It's a purposeful living. Let me go to men's rite of passage. I want to do just one of those bad coaching questions. Who's familiar with Richard Rohr? Okay. He does some really good writing and reflecting. He's been doing men's work for about the last 20 years, and he is the initiator, former founder of Illuman-Men's Rite of Passage. He's a Catholic priest. Scuttlebutt is that he's a gay priest, but he doesn't talk about that too much. He makes reference to his own sexuality at times. And he believes that men need to experience what is called traditional initiation. And by that, he believes men need to be in nature. They need to experience ritual, images that help them form who they are, sharing their story and hearing other men's story, and sitting in council like my father did on the front porch around the potbelly stove, telling the story about who you are. It is a spiritual program. They say, let me just go through this really quick. Cost about $500. It's 5 days. The food and is really good. I will not say that about Mankind Project for the initiates. It's held about 5 to 6 times per year in the United States. They are broadening out to Mexico and Europe. It's a combination of the 5 days of reflective talks, meditative talks. It starts the day with a meditation of about 30 minutes, ritual, prayer, meditation time, and a lot of time in nature. Richard Rohr believes that men need to get to that sort of wild man, connecting to nature, because that will teach us and embrace us to God. And it is about God. And you'll hear a lot about God, a lot about Jesus, a lot about Jonah, about Joseph during the 5 days. Leadership and participants are significantly made up of clergy, those of the Christian faith, and Richard Rohr is basing this workshop on the life of Jesus as a model how to love. Magician energy and lover energy. They want you to know in the experience of nature of this week that you are loved, and that by communicating with nature, meditation, and the ritual, you were embraced in life in love. They speak to liminal space. Liminal space means threshold. So they create this space when you in, you give up your cell phones, all contact, and in this 5 days, you are in this cocoon, really, of magical transformational energy. Now, they say any faith can come, that they are embracing of all faiths, but this is what you will experience when you step into an Illuman-Men and Rite of Passage. these are two, the one on the right is what I experienced. So there's this big picture. Jesus has the biggest cock you can ever imagine. The one on the left was done in New Mexico. And the whole week is focused around this mural where Jesus is the sacrificial, loving person that comes. And on the left of him, or to his right, is the story of Jonah in the whale, Joseph, and I'm forgetting the other person, so bear with me. I will say, if I were a Buddhist or Islamic or an atheist, I would be uncomfortable in this, what they're creating there. The week focuses on meditating significant time in nature. I'm being redundant here, on 5 spiritual truths that we need to come to terms with. One is, life is hard. You're not important. Your life is not about you, and you're going to die, and you are not in control. Now, pardon my, you're not in control. I couldn't find one like the other ones on the Illuman site, so I had to create this one because when I was bringing in some furniture on Saturday, I fell, and I thought, well, that's a good image for not being in control. Through the week, they want you to come to this reality. Life is hard, but suffering and difficulty are part of life. We are freed from unrealistic expectations, and this sets us free, and we embrace life as it is. Your life is not about you. We do not decide alone what course life takes. It's discerning God's will and living purposefully. You are not in control. Control is an illusion. Accept things as they are. Accept this is will cause you to have less anxiety, be less angry, and be more with. And discern for yourself where you do have control. You are not that important. Again, they're going to a theological, spiritual premise here that we are created and loved by God, and we are to come to terms with that. Other people are more important than us or me, and God's purpose is as well. And we may be about having a purpose that is unknown into our lives, and we need to discern what it is. And ultimately, you're going to die, but today you live and live on purpose. So I'm coming back to you for just a second. Thoughts, comments at this point?
I loved "You Are Not That Important." I think that's a great message for us all to get once in a while, because we can sure take ourselves and the little things way too seriously in the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
That just jarred me, that one, and it made me smile.
I'll comment on that. If they were doing this, okay, I'm being my critics coming out. If they were doing this really well, this is very Buddhist as well. Really, the teachings of the Buddha. And if they were incorporate the two, then they really could say, yes, you know, we have these spiritual truths we have this weekend, and combine, you know, the great philosophy of Buddha with the teachings of Jesus. Yeah. Any other comment?
It's got smells of existentialism as well. There's a lot of existentialist philosophy in there, and also reminds me a lot of acceptance and commitment coaching and acceptance and commitment therapy about purposeful living and acceptance. So it's interesting how these concepts come up in the various different strands. You know, you can have this in a men's group, but you can also have this in lots of different areas, but it's the same kind of philosophy that's underlying it. So
yeah, and a different avenue to get there. the existentialism, or they would say experiential. So we're going to put you in nature. I'll tell one of the state secrets. There is one day where you go off and you're alone the whole day in nature. It rained our day. So, and I didn't bring a raincoat, but that's another story. Yes. Any other comments at this point? Questions?
Is there anything about that workshop that's unique about it being men as opposed to just being open to anyone?
Richard Rohr on two theses, so thanks, Alan. Richard Rohr, one, believes that men are increasingly, where I was going from, increasingly isolated and alone. And he believes that the church, meaning the Catholic Church, and he's also pointing even more critically to the Protestant Church, especially the evangelical church, is failing men. Because he's saying that the church is very feminine in their approach, and it's not meeting men's needs. So he's getting a lot of kickback from traditional Catholics about what we're doing. And the other thing, what I said, he's saying that men are increasingly alone and depressed, and they need this.
Thank you.
So, yeah. You go
I
back
guess
to sharing.
just kind of hearing it from a different perspective. I'm wondering if it gets, this is sort of, I guess, coming from a positive psychology point of view, but kind of listening to that and reading that almost brings me way down to like, I just want to forget it. I'm going to die. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not, you know, it really kind of brings a message across that, why should I even try? Why should I even care? So I'm wondering what kind of feedback or how he addresses that maybe further. So I think what he's doing is breaking the foundation and then hopefully building on that with some tools.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that. I will go with my gut reaction. Day 2, day 3 is a lot of grief work. The meditation is on grief. The life that you want and thought you were deserving and trying to work for, you may not be achieving. And there was talk around grief about that, to let go of that, process that grief. Now, for me, I think, personal sharing here, some of the leaders, one elder in particularly, was really concerned for me, and he didn't do it in a good way, because my grief came forward. I went out and I laid on the grass, and it was a sunshiny day. And my grief started to come in a way that had not come before. And that is all the men that I have experienced who have died of AIDS. And that my own surviving AIDS. And I'm getting emotional here just thinking about it. And I just wailed. And they thought something was wrong with me. And I explained to them, you know, I am grieving, fearing love, fearing sex, losing everyone. And, you know, I'm being judgmental here, but I don't think too much. They didn't get it. Of the 80 men there, 4 men were gay. None of the leadership. So, so going back to your question, the grief process, yes, to get beyond what the life I wanted, I'm not achieving, but embracing a new reality here. Okay, and they're calling that liminal space. And let me go back to sharing the screen. I need to do that. Tell me you are seeing the screen, right? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Let me back up. Yep. Okay. want to get to after the men's rite of passage. We've all had that sort of kumbaya experience at Easton Mountain, Wildwood, wherever it is. I mean, it's really wonderful. And you're going, and I remember Harry telling us, when you're leaving here, don't drive too fast, because it's sort of like coming back into reality. They say that men's rite of passage is afterwards has created during the week you to be in what is called a council. And it's usually 6 to 7 men. And afterwards, you're putting councils or recommended for council or 6 to 7 men. And you have, as long as you want to talk, with this premise: everyone is to listen from their heart. You are to speak from your heart, be spontaneous and authentic, and be lean of expression. So what would happen in council and post is men gather and they share what's going on with their life, how they experience God, what are they feeling, experiencing, and they talk for 5 to 10 minutes and then listen. And then there's an aho, or we heard you, and then the next man talks. There's never any feedback to that. They say that that's transformational. So I'm giving you what they say. And I found it too, to some extent. Is Illuman-Men's rite of passage is welcoming to GBTQ plus men? They say they are. When I asked, are there any GBTQ plus councils? Just that. They said no, but if you want to form one, you can. But then this was sort of like the slap in the face. You know, we're really embracing of gay men, Richard, because the Weaver, that's the leader of the Weaver, says, I want you to know that the artwork you saw this weekend was done by a gay man. And the rituals you heard were all written by gay men. And I went, really? There is within, I am familiar with the Illuman, that there are gay men that are operating to make Illuman more sensitive to GBTQ men. I would feel comfortable, a man that has some sense of spirituality, recommending that he go to Illuman if he wanted a deeper sense of being loved, being appreciative, wanting a transformational 5 days. A trans man, no, I would never recommend Illuman to them. I don't think the leadership would be able to handle a trans man. And I think a trans man would feel very uncomfortable. And that's my bias, having talked with a couple of trans men about Illuman and shared with them, and they went, no, couldn't do it. So, but that's my bias. Mankind Project. Founded in 1985, they're now in 23 nations. They are absolutely not religious. Men of all faiths, no faiths are welcome. They're inclusive of men of all backgrounds, orientations, ages, and abilities. The focus is about $700. I will say no man is turned away due to finances. They will do scholarship, they will do a payment plan, they will reduce the fee. It's Friday from 5 p.m. to about Sunday, 3 p.m. There are leaders, co-leaders, ritual elders who go through extensive process. By the way, in Illuman, there is what's called the Weaver that is the head of the weekend, and he really runs the show. He weaves together the themes. And New Warrior staff ratio is about 2 staff to every 1 participant. They're combining Jungian concepts of the warrior, magician, king, lover, bringing in the work of Robert Bly, Iron John, hero's journey, psychodrama. Each man during the weekend is going to have about 20-30 minutes of really transformational work. You've heard of men's groups that scream. Someone mentioned this earlier, shout. They talk about their cock and sexuality. It's now called sexual shadow. They dance around a fire naked. Yup, that's the Mankind Project. They do all of that. And men are told safety is paramount, both emotional and physical safety. During the weekend, if any man, they teach this within the first hour on Friday night, if any man feels unsafe or man sees something happening that is not safe, they teach men to yell the word safety. And no lie, everything fucking stops until the safety issue is addressed, whether it's emotional or physical safety. So they say you can participate in any activity. If you don't want to get naked around the fire, you don't want to participate in this activity, it's okay. And they will get a leader to come stand by you to support you in that. Focus is mainly on warrior and king energy. The weekend challenges a man to look at what gets in the way of what you want in life. What's at risk if you get it or don't get it? And what values lead you? What is your purpose? And how will you let men support you? Well, let me just pause here. Oops. I just gave a sort of very, very short overview of Mankind Project. A couple guys have been part of it. What questions, comments do you have about Mankind Project at this point? Well, let me just, before you answer that, they focus in on warrior and king energy. Warrior is, what are you about? What boundaries you need in life? How do you lead purposeful living? And then moving to king, sovereign. How do you move forward, not letting your shadow get in the way, but living into your gold? Okay. Comments, questions? Craig?
Yeah, I'll say that they have what they call a gateway experience for LGBTQ men at Mankind Project. I actually did this sort of regular one, non-gateway one, because for me, I felt like I had more peace with gay men than I did with straight men. And I felt like it would be more of an edge for me personally if I did it with more straight men. But I felt very welcome there and very honored. And I think that one great thing about Mankind Project, from my perspective, is, yeah, they take you to this kind of really expansive peak experience during the weekend, but they really have a beautiful follow-up integrative experience for people to really stay connected, which I think is hugely important.
Other comments, questions?
Oh, this is Harry. I have not attended the project, but ever since I worked at the Body Electric, I recommended it to men expressly for the reason that Craig just said, that they have these eye groups in your location. So it's very different from a Body Electric experience or other transformational experiences like Illuman. When it's done, you have Monday morning and your same old self is back again. And how do we deal with ourselves after an experience like that? And the Mankind Project offers you as much follow-up with those groups, and I believe they're free, and also in your local area. I think we need that continuity of the truths that we came to realize when we did these workshops and how to bring them into our ordinary lives. Thank you.
Afterwards, you can go online and look at all the resources. And I went through the weekend about the same time I was going through CTI. And I find it funny because there must have been, or continue to be, a lot of coaches within Mankind Project. Because in the manual, there is the Wheel of Life, there is the Future Self, there's other meditative vision. I went, oh, some coach has been doing this, right? Yeah. Other comments, questions at this point?
Just a question, since I haven't been to any of these. Is there like I hate to use the word criteria, but like, if you're going through this or you're exploring this, our program is for you, or is this come at any time in your life journey, we've got something for you kind of approach it?
Yes, it would be the latter. Both do an interview process prior to get a concept, why are you coming, telling you a little bit about it. The Mankind Project, through their Friday, Sunday, they want to keep it pretty secret, but you can find it all online. There was an article in Men's Journal about 2 or 3, maybe 4 years ago, where someone wanted to experience a journalist, and he secretly did not identify that he was a journalist, and he wrote about it, and it was transformational for him. Mankind Project, I did not experience this with Illuman. Mankind Project does a medical screening form. And if you're on any sort of psychiatric med, had any recent psychiatric hospitalization, they have a psych team. I shouldn't call it that, a mental health team. And a psychologist or clinical social worker will interview the person for their readiness to go through the weekend. As we all know, for people that are going into coaching or psychotherapy, that jarring effect can be, can do a negative. And so they're very careful about screening people. Right? I'm screen sharing, it says. Let me back up. As Craig mentioned and Harry mentioned, afterwards there's what's called the integration groups. The national does not control those, but if they were to hear something that was out not kosher, like around 15 years ago, there was a group out in California that was doing the weekend to get people that were having same-sex attraction to overcome it. MKP National found out about it. They ended it and shut it down and kicked those people out that were trying to do it. They are accepting of gay, bi, trans, queer men. Trans men go through the weekend. And yet it's a growing edge for the Mankind community. They're accepting, they have gay leaders. I never heard of any gay leader with Illuman. As mentioned, there are what's called gateways, where 90% of the staff are gay, bi, trans, or queer, and all participants are about 90% are gay, bi, trans, or queer. They have also, just on a side note, they do men of color gateways. And last month in Michigan, they did their first pan-Asian gateway, where 90% of the staff or 90% of the participants were pan-Asian. And they did, I'm not getting the name right. Craig, you may know this. They have done weekends for people with disabilities. So people confined to a wheelchair or speech or mental illness. And they will assign men to carry man in a wheelchair through the weekend. So it's pretty amazing that Mankind Project is working to address needs of all men in a pretty unique way, and challenged it sometimes by leadership being resistant, but they're doing it. Leaders of both organizations view the Mankind Project serves well men in the first phase of life, establishing identity, finding and overcoming fears, the shadow, establishing boundaries in life, living purposefully into one's mission. And there's a lot of work around mission. Illuman serves men well in the second phase of life, connection, dealing with grief, loving and living more purposefully, claiming one's part of something bigger than himself, and addressing the same challenges. Yet at both events, the age range is anywhere from 20 to 80. All right. Someone said I should do question and answer. Questions? Comments?
I have a question. In terms of recommending this to your coaching clients, how do you do that? I'm just generally curious. Do you avoid doing it, or do you do it?
I do it very carefully. If I'm hearing a theme in a man's life that, and I haven't done it with Illuman, but I would. If I hear a man saying, I'm really struggling with my faith, I don't know my purpose in life, I'm angry at the church, I'm angry at God. Well, that's not true. I have talked to one man about that and recommended it to him. By the way, Illuman does the councils online, and you do not have to go through the 5 days to be part of council. You can experience that. With Mankind Project, if I'm experiencing man with a lot of anger, that he is frustrated in life, and Mankind Project on Friday will say, what's not working for you? What's getting in the way? And with that, I have recommended several men, and it served them well. Okay. Yeah. Hope that answers that.
Oh, this is Harry. And I would like to say personally in my own life, going to men's gatherings has been transformational and supportive. I was 47 years old when I got sober, and finding the California men's gathering, I was living in California, was transformational, and finding the Body Electric School was also transformational. And then after all this transformation, I had to put up something in gratitude, and Easton Mountain and the Gay Coaches Alliance is my giving back for what I received. And my attitude is, if you're looking for something in the world and it's not there, and you're thinking, well, why doesn't somebody do this? That's your job. And then do what it is, make what you think you need if it doesn't exist already. And we are all, I think, getting the idea that whatever this process is, we're all giving the same message. It's not complicated. And as coaches, we're all giving the same message. And sometimes it feels like we invented it, but somebody else said it before us. And I'd like to say a word in praise of Richard Rohr, the Franciscan priest who created that workshop. I know him because he's an Enneagram teacher for 30 years, and he has tapes, lectures on all the types of Enneagram, and he's an excellent teacher in that regard, and his presentation is not particularly Catholic or Christian.
Yeah.
So it's an area where everybody would feel welcome if you're interested in the Enneagram. And I like the idea of the Mankind Project, and they have also done the project here at Easton Mountain, and for various reasons they couldn't continue it, and they went somewhere else. So I think we're all holding hands together in a circle. Thank you.
Body Electric and Mankind Project have also collaborated in the past. I think Mankind Project doesn't go into the realm of the erotic really explicitly or intentionally, and Body Electric does. And so we've had these really amazing experiences of collaborating. We were going to do another one during COVID, but it got canceled, of course. But that's fun to collaborate across these organizations as well.
I've heard a
There was
rumor
one
that
planned.
Body Electric and the Gay Coaches Alliance might be having a little conversation.
Dalliance.
Hmm.
Dalliance.
What? No,
Absolutely, yes.
sorry, I
Yeah,
interrupted
No.
you, Richard.
no, that was a perfect segue. So that's good information to have. Thanks, Gary. Yeah, it was supposed to be in spring or fall of 2020, I think it was, where Mankind Project of the Mid-Atlantic, where I'm from, and Carl Operly, Craig and others were coordinating to have it at Claymont Mansion or Claymont Court. And then something called COVID happened and got canceled. So yeah, and there was a lot of interest within the gay community of Mankind Project here to it. Yeah.
So if I
Um,
may, Richard, I'd like to add one comment to what Harry was saying. So Harry, Mr. Modest Harry, who he's the king of getting stuff happening and pointing to people to get it to happen. So the Gay Coaches Alliance would not be around if it not for conversations that he was a part of. Easton Mountain might even be something he had something to do with. I don't know, you know. And every time I hear Harry talk, it's like, oh, well, I was talking with so-and-so and this happened. And he met Thomas Leonard when he was doing coaching, and Harry's a coach. And I think that one of the things I'm learning from this conversation is we are supported way more than we were 20, 30, 50 years ago. And if you can't find what you need, it's, first of all, it's most likely going to be out there. And this is a group that can help you find it. We have, look at these people here. There's Harry, there's Richard, there's Craig, you know, and those are, you know, guests and members of the Alliance. But every time I go to something with regards to the Gay Coaches Alliance, I find out about something else. And it brings me a great deal of peace and comfort to know that if I were ever in trouble and needed help, I could pick anybody on this screen, anybody. And even if I've never had a one-on-one with you, I could, you know, put my hand up and I'm sure somebody would come to my aid.
You bet.
and
Especially you.
So do you need a ride to your colonoscopy?
Yeah.
Or you need a colonoscopy.
Yes, most men don't know that. That's my
Right.
point at the beginning. And they feel really alone and isolated. And whether you do Illumin or you go to Gay Spirit Vision or you go to Easton Mountain, you get this connection and you feel, I am not alone in this world. And then I can pick up the phone and I can call, you know, the men that I met at Illumin, or more. 5 years ago, I was the GBTQ group does a retreat for only gay men and mankind in Indiana. God knows why Indiana. I know it's the cheapest place they could find. But on the way back, the 3 people in the car said, well, you know, if only we could have this experience with only GBTQ men in a circle. So in Frederick, Maryland, we have the only Mid-Atlantic GBTQ circle of 12 gay, bi, trans, queer men. And it's really amazing. Yes, they would take me for a ride for a medical appointment or if I needed support. And what I offer you, men, and I know we're reaching the end of time here, brilliant that you said that we could call on anybody in this for support or to find out something. And for you to get that message apart to your clients. And as you think here, if you were to do a men's workshop, a GBTQ workshop, what would be your focus? What's some sort of core nugget that you would want men to have during that 2 or 3 days?
What came to mind was what Michael Cohen said a long time ago was, you are not meant to do this alone.
Yeah.
No one ever told me that
Craig,
except him.
yeah.
One
Craig
thing
wrote
you
Unleashing
didn't
Creativity.
mention- One thing you didn't mention about men getting together is my experience, and I know a few others have had it. I was in the Boy Scouts, and I had a completely 100% positive experience of belonging. And
Mm.
my work, for my own personal work, has been about belonging and finding a place where other men, especially gay men, could belong. So it's that Boy Scouts is like your father sitting around the stove. And also, you didn't mention men in barbershops. That's another place where guys went, and they're actually in the area where I live, coming back, a place where you can go and hang out and talk with people. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry.
Richard, for me, this would be about hiding. And I think there's something, certainly as gay men, I think a lot of us hide stuff, and there's a kind of pervasive tendency for us not to reveal bits of ourselves. And some of that can cause issues in our professional lives, perhaps, as well as our personal lives. So I think for me, it would be something about encouraging us, each other, just to just stop hiding.
Yeah, yeah.
I think, go ahead.
I've done some workshops with CMG, California Men's Gatherings, on the importance of sharing our stories. Well, I did comment earlier that I love that line, "You're not that important." That also has to be counterbalanced with "You matter." And people live and die keeping their stories to themselves. And it's both detrimental to the person and selfish to not share, because of what we all learn from what each other have been through. So when I get people to write and share their stories and in those circles, and it could be anything, it could be something that brought them joy, or something that eats at them in the back of their mind, a memory, whatever, is just sharing. And people keep, because everybody kind of has this mentality of it's not that important. No, but it's
to be heard, to be heard.
Yeah. I belong to a storytelling community here in San Diego, where once a month, 7 people work on a story and share it. And about 100, 150 people come and hear it. It's amazing. You can hear it on a podcast. I could put the link to that. Just hearing what it's like for people to share their stories.
Yeah. Whatever you do, and whether you're coaching your life, I've come to believe, Irv Yalom has written a book. He's the book guy that group therapy, that what he calls rippling. What we're doing in life is having a rippling effect, and we do not know what it is most of the time. A men's gathering that I did in 2005 was Authentic Eros with Don Shuey and Kai. And I resisted that 3 days, especially with Liam sitting in front of me saying, "Look in my eyes, Richard, look in my eyes." And I'm looking over his shoulder over at the mountain. Look in my eyes. I came back from that more connected to myself, feeling comfortable connecting. And within 2 weeks, my father was in the hospital, age 80, and having heart failure. And he knew, I knew he was dying. And he's laying in the hospital bed. Sleep, I thought. And I'm reading a book, and I look up, and he's looking at me. Looking at me. Eyes contacted. And I felt Don and Kai and Liam saying, "Stay present, Richard. Look in his eyes." And it was the most beautiful, intimate moment with my father that I ever had. Rippling effect. He died 2 days later. I felt connected. So, and then I go to Alan up there. his beautiful book, if there was a workshop that Alan would give, just fingers touching, feeling a hand, what he writes about in his book, to get man that they can feel comfortable doing that, oh my God, it'd be transformational. Sign me up for that workshop out.
Right behind me.
So on that note, I hope you got something from it. My pleasure in being here with you all, and I am complete.